Ooh, I hope we're not missing anything. Anyway, I recorded every class and posted it so that you can watch the recording. Why does that date look wrong? That's
Um,
right.
I think the Thursday after we started, I think that one's not is
Is
missing.
The
it's
27th is
missing. August
27th.
27th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay, I'll find it. I'll find it. I don't know how many of you guys want it,
that
but
was the night it stormed here, and I lost you. And I've been trying
oh, shoot.
to.
I wish you would have told me, Mandy. Every once in a while, what you guys don't know, like the backstory a little bit, is that when I record 2 hours of class, the video recording is sometimes like 2 GB, which is really big. And Hack will only let me show 1 GB. So what I have to do is either it has to convert, which takes like an hour. So when I get done with this class, I go upstairs and I like go to bed and the class is still converting. So then I have to check it. And if it's under 1 GB, I can upload it to D2L. But if it's over 1 GB, I have to upload it to YouTube and then I have to make a link to D2L. And sometimes in all those steps, because each of them takes an hour, I forget. So I've tried to be really good about it, but it might be on YouTube, but not on here. So just let me find it. I'm guessing I didn't delete it, but maybe I did. Okay, so hopefully I can locate it. But I'm sorry about that, Mandy. We'll see what happens. See if I did empty my trash, so hopefully it wasn't in my trash. Okay, so anyway, so the recordings are here, so you click on each one. Some of them, on that note, some of them will play right in the window, and others will take you to YouTube, and it just depends on how long the file is why that's happening. Okay, so other announcements that I wanted to give you. Did anybody have any other questions or something to say? Okay. The other announcements, I posted this, but I just want to remind you that you now need to photograph your artwork properly. You need to have it square. You need to crop out the extra information. So you should be treating this like you were submitting an image to try to get into an art show, or like you were submitting an image that was going to be printed and framed. So if there's any extras in there, if it's crooked, anything like that, that's all stuff that's going to show up as bad presentation, basically. So this is kind of like your notice. Like at first I didn't want to overwhelm you with all this stuff, but now maybe you need to go watch that photographing your artwork video under first week again. The video is right here, third one down. But you need to start squaring and cleaning up and lighting well, all of your drawings as you submit them. So I'll maybe mention that a little more as we look at the artwork today. I posted some grades. So the grades are on your grade book. I can't show you the grades because it's going to show you everybody's grades because I'm a teacher. And if I switch to student view, it's going to show you no grades because I have no grades. So you just need to go look at the grades tab over here and notice that if you have a 0 on something, if you see a little dash next to an assignment, doesn't mean anything. It means I haven't graded anybody's, or it doesn't matter if you didn't do it. I'm not penalizing you, whatever. But if you see a 0, it means you didn't do it. It means I graded everybody else, and even if you handed something in, you got a 0. And I don't give zeros to just like a submission. So that means I don't think you gave me anything. So if there's a 0, you should be like on high alert about that. Otherwise, there's grades. I consider myself having given you feedback during our critique time. I consider that the feedback. So I don't feel, especially since I'm recording it, I don't feel an obligation to retype my reasoning behind why I gave you a grade. Also, if you get a C or higher, I don't always feel obligated to explain that to you because I feel like a C is average. So if you did an average job, you got a C. If you did better than that, that's great. Then you probably already know. So, maybe a C and lower is when I feel like I need to write something in to explain it to you. But again, I don't feel like that's my job if I already did it during critique. So I am not offended in any way if you question your grade. If you want an explanation of the grade, I'm happy to provide it and discuss it more with you. And any assignment that you don't like the grade, but you handed it in, you can go back and replace it or change it or improve the grade at any time. So I just want to remind you of that as I'm posting those first grades, that's my policy. My policy is if you get anything below an A and you want to redo it 20 times, I will keep taking it back. I will keep discussing it with you. I'll keep giving you tips on how to change it. And I guess my final point would be if you got a D on this assignment and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to fix it. 2 pieces of advice. One is wait a couple weeks. Unless you really know what you did wrong, wait a little bit. You're going to get better at drawing and it's going to be easier to fix it. The other piece of advice is unless you know exactly what you did wrong, ask me, because then we're not wasting each other's time. You're not wasting your time drawing without any idea of what you're trying to accomplish. So that's just my little a bit of information with that. Any questions about that? So I think I want to jump right into drawing, and then I want to give you like a break partway through where I look at your homework and critique it. And that'll be like our little break. We'll look at those pictures and then we'll go back. It worked nicely in my AM class. It was an accident, but I actually liked how it went. So we'll take a break and then we'll come back to drawing to finish up the evening. So I have a little PowerPoint I want to show you before we start drawing. It's like 10 slides. And it's introducing the idea of vertical and horizontal alignment. And that should not actually be that new to you because I've asked you guys, just as we've been drawing already, I've said, hey, hold up your skewer and get the angle, right? And I've also asked you at times, hold up a straight line and look across. That's vertical and horizontal alignment in a nutshell. So this PowerPoint is just going to hone in on that and talk about it a little more. Now, when I drew for you the first day, I drew for you and I drew the way I draw. So I didn't, separate out all the little tools and tricks I know how to do and do them one at a time. I was doing it all together because that's the way I see, and that's the way you are going to see and think, so all of a sudden I'm measuring, all of a sudden I'm checking an angle, all of a sudden I'm checking a relationship. But as I introduce each of these tools, I want us to just for the day kind of pretend that's our only tool for doing that. So remember how I said it won't be very efficient? It's not very efficient if you you skip ahead and you try to measure every little thing. You need to do everything you can do with a gesture. The gesture is going to be the most efficient way of drawing, and the closer you can get to accurate with a gesture, the less you have to do later with some of these other sort of slower tools. And I think of this horizontal and vertical alignment as a little bit slower tool. We're going to start with the gesture, but then we're going to act like this is the only tool we have. We don't really know how to measure. We don't really know how to check angles. We're just doing this. And that's so I can really make sure you get the skill. And then after that, it's just going to be another tool in your tool belt. It's just going to be something you pull out when that's the convenient tool to use. And then you're going to use other things to check other tools I introduced to check other things. So having said that, let's look at a couple of these pictures. So these horizontal lines across the bottom are kind of just to give you like a mindset of what I'm seeing. Like I'm imagining lines going the whole way across the page. And you can see as you go back in space, those are the lines that are higher on the page, and you have different kind of relationships and comparisons to make than when you come forward and see things that are closer to you on the page. By the way, I'm going to show this image, and in the next few weeks, I'm going to be showing images from this book, which is a really great book. Drawing from Observation by Brian Curtis. I may have mentioned it once already, but it has awesome pictures. It's all pictures. And I was thinking this was like a $15 book if you got it used. It's like $65 used, and it's not that big of a book. So I think it's worth $65, but I was a little taken aback that it cost that much. So it's not the easiest book to get. So I took a lot of pictures of different pages, which is why they look a little crooked, and I'm going to show you them. So this is a familiar still life for you guys, and this would be a few examples of vertical and horizontal comparisons that I'm making. So, you look at this pink line. Can you guys see my mouse? So you see, the top of the apple as I go across would run into, this picture frame. It will be a little below the top of the picture frame. It will be a lot below that side. It would hit right where the knob of the handle is starting. It would keep going and hit the other side of the knob. It would hit below the door, the handles of the door, below this window pane, and it would be above the pear, but it would run into the stem of the pear. So everything that happens along the way is of concern to me. I'm going to draw this horizontal line and check everything that happens as I move across the page. Same thing vertically. So I'm lining up with the corner of where the glass hits the metal on this little lantern. And as I go down, I can see where, a swirl runs into it. I can see where the handle sort of crosses over, and what angle the handle crosses over is kind of important, right? Like, it's not perfectly straight like it is up here, and it's not curved and rounded and almost horizontal like it is down here. So that gives me a really definite bit of information to record as I head down. Then there's another curve or angle here, out the back side back here, the inside that holds the candle. As I go up, I hit, inside this knob area, but like in a little bit from that spot where it ends. Then I keep going and I'm on the door, the actual door, where the door joins to the wall. And you're going to start being responsible for backgrounds, so that's why I'm pointing it out to you. So you can see these relationships happening on the page. You've probably already seen me do this, but I'm just showing it, and I wanted you to have pictures of it to reference. So I've put this PowerPoint in the under content, under horizontal and vertical alignment, so you have these pictures to go back to and reference if you'd like. But this is another example of, or an example of where I'm holding up the skewer to check the horizontal, and it's going straight through the middle of the apple, coming across and hitting the bottom of the lid here, or you could say the top of the lantern, whichever one. I think I was doing the top of the lantern actually, so it's the bottom side of the skewer. And then, it continues past this pear. So as I look at the gesture, I've already done the best I can do with my gesture. I've tried, and I've got it as accurate as I can, and now I'm moving on to that process of vertical and horizontal alignment and checking my drawing that way. So I'm holding up this skewer, and I'm seeing my skewer is lined up with the top of the lantern, but it's going through the bottom of the apple. So that apple would have to move, down till I'm going through the middle of it, right? And then as I move across this way, I notice right where that one sort of lump of the pear turns into the other lump and it changes direction, that's kind of where the top of my skewer is hitting, but I really should be looking at the bottom of the skewer. So this all needs to sort of move down a little bit too. Now, do these need to move down, or does the top of this lantern need to move up? If you've checked all this other stuff and you feel pretty confident about it, maybe the height problem is with the lantern and not the fruit. And typically, in the past, my memory of walking around the room and looking at students' work and, problem solving with them, because I'll kind of sit there and, check a few things till I'm pretty confident of what the answer is. And typically, the answer of which one needs to move is both. Unless one is really, really wrong, it's probably that those come down a little bit. It's probably also that the lantern goes up a little bit. So, you're finding what's inaccurate, then you've kind of got to solve the problem of, well, what is the thing that needs to move to make this more accurate? So maybe that's double checking yourself with angles or with other stuff that we're not going to spend too much time on today. So here's another image, vertical this time, and look how crooked that skewer is. That is terrible. I needed to hold that much straighter to have a real appropriate comparison there. So apologies for that being crooked. But you see me lining up, I think with the edge of the bowl, like where the bowl intersects with this box. And then going up from there, looking at, see this triangular negative space that's happening? I'm calling it negative space. That little triangle is important. Do I have the same little triangle happening over here? Or do I need to maybe draw a little more just to make that a more firm, clear recording of information? As I keep going up, I'm cutting the box more or less in half. Same thing with the apple. There's a little more of the box to the left than to the right, and the stem runs right through there. So those things, and how I interact with this bowl or intersect with the bowl, all those pieces of information are things that I need to be responding to as I check a vertical line. Out of this textbook are 4 great examples of what they call in the text the perceptual grid. And I will ask you for each vertical or horizontal you draw to draw the line. So you see this grid of information start to emerge. And you can see, look how much the seat changed. Do you see how big the seat of this chair was? And then how it got smaller and then smaller and then smaller, and then it wound up over here. So they were learning a lot by checking all these angles. And you can see the tabletop too was real, wacky and big, and it shrank and shrank and shrank till it was the right angle and size. So these are 4 different students' efforts at the same perceptual grid approach. They also call it the Mondrian tool, or referencing the artist Mondrian. And I didn't put any pictures of his work in, but let me just briefly pull up an image and show you, because I hate talking about it and then you not seeing an artist. Does anybody, I can't see all of you right now, but does anybody know Mondrian, the artist? When you see the work, I wonder if it'll be some familiar to you. So have you seen, oh, that's just a really good example. See if that just brings up, oh, I should have said open image in new window, open image in new tab. There we go. Okay, so see this piece down on the bottom? That's probably kind of familiar to some of you guys, right? That's sort of the art that Mondrian was famous for, what I would call non-objective. You look at that and you can't get anything representational out of it. You can't look at that and see a tree. You can't look at it and see a person. It's just shapes. But over the evolution of his work, all 6 of these images are not one piece. They're pieces he did earlier in life and later in life. But do you see how he started with something more representational? He's abstracting it. And do you see where these verticals and horizontals are starting to come into play? Now, we're pretty much lost by the time we get down here, but there's something between here and here and here, mostly with this image, that hopefully, do you see that perceptual grid? I mean, in this case, taking over the drawing, but can you see those relationships that he must have been a little bit aware of here and even back here, where this branch might line up with that one over there, or how these spaces might be divided differently. So that's an image that probably ought to have been in the PowerPoint. So the only other thing I thought I would mention on this particular slide is line variation. So looking at these bottom 2 images especially, look at the line weight, how thick and heavy the line is that drew this box and this box. The closer one is going to have a much heavier line because it's closer to us and it's bigger. And look at the bottom of this box versus the top. The bottom has a heavier line because it's holding a little bit more weight. So, this object, which is between the two spatially, in terms of depth, is also drawn with a medium line, something between those two. This is something you might do a little bit intuitively as you're drawing, but it's also something that you can sort of put into your drawing at the end when you're like, okay, I'm happy with everything. I know where everything is. Now I'm going to add line variation by lightening some things and darkening others. But it's also something that you can sort of be conscious of the whole time you're drawing. And hopefully that would be hard. Like if you're sitting here saying, okay, now I need to remember that too. I need to remember that the whole time I'm drawing. Don't think like that so much. But I hope it becomes second nature to you as you keep working. Let me read you this little excerpt on the bottom here. It says, an extended gesture drawing, and remember the quick gesture drawing is just that very brief, loose beginning, but an extended gesture drawing has multiple levels of content. It conveys your struggle to locate the objects in relation to the perceptual grid, as well as revealing the visual character of the objects themselves. And that's about right, isn't it? On the one hand, we're trying to lay out the page. On the other hand, we're trying to make sense of the forms. Underlying it all is your sensitivity to the touch of the drawing tool and the paper. And that touch of the drawing tool, I think, is a reference to line variation. Okay. And guys, if you'd like to interject or say anything or chime in on any page of this, I won't feel interrupted. I'd love to have a conversation with you about these images.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt that.
Go ahead. Who first? I heard two voices.
Mandy can go first. That's fine. Mandy, go ahead.
Okay, so where I'm struggling is my brain wants to put on the photograph or the picture that I'm drawing what it's supposed to look like. And I'm
at the end.
On that.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be doing that right now. Is that correct? Am I more thinking this is like my pre-workout? I'm just getting my fingers and everything. Think of it like that versus the finished product.
Yeah, and I think there's some mindset ways to like kind of change your approach, and like what you're saying is like, okay, I'm warming up. This is not the run. This is just like the stretches beforehand. So thinking of it in some other way where you kind of remove yourself from, I'm not drawing yet. Now, this is kind of what's funny is that every stage of drawing, like when I'm drawing, I'm always at this other stage where I'm like, okay, well, I'm not drawing yet, but now I'm measuring, and then you realize you're drawing the whole time. But yeah, you don't want to be drawing the objects. You want to be making a placeholder for the object. You want to be finding a space. You could even think of it as like it's coming in a cardboard box, and you can't see what's in the box, but there's some boxes there. And so you're just trying to do a box, or it's wrapped in a piece of fabric and it's tied up. It's like a package, right? And so the general form, and you can guess, that it's something, but you don't know what it is. You don't know if it has a lid. You don't know if it's, you just know it's round, or you just know it's tall and skinny. So if you could have that level of non-focus, if you wore glasses or contacts, and you took them out and you could just make out those shapes, but you couldn't actually see what they were, that's kind of what I want your gesture to be. And as we're talking about that, I was thinking one thing you could do, it works better on the good paper. It doesn't work so well on newsprint, is use your dirty chamois, wrap it around your finger, and do your first gestural marks with your finger, so that you're lost in terms of trying to detail the object. Something else that teachers make their students do, I don't usually get time to make people do this, but I should make you guys do this, is they'll make their students go outside and get a long stick, and here I've got a fly swatter, which is kind of gross, and like tape the charcoal to the end of the fly swatter or the end of the stick, and you have to hold the way other end and you have to draw with that. And what that's going to do to you is be really frustrating because you can't be precise. But what's great about it is that it's going to handicap you into not letting you do any details, but force you to just make kind of the essential, like, this is the boundary of this thing. This is all I can really accomplish at this distance with this like limiting tool. So those are kind of actual things you can put into practice to make it harder for you to overfocus, but also mentally. And I'm talking to you, Mandy, but I'm spending some time on it because I'm really talking to the majority of people in the class when I'm describing, how most people are over dependent on trying to create the image of this thing too soon. Yeah.
The picture on the top left is perfect because
yes, yeah,
some of mine look like that and I got rid of them. I'm like, oh, I can't give that to professor. She would just
this is the text example. Yeah. And that's also why I'm trying to show you guys more examples of student work. Every semester I tell myself I didn't show enough professional artists' work. But I think these are really good examples so that you don't feel like, you have this image in your head of what you're going for. You have these images. And sometimes it's good to even have the images up so you don't forget sort of what you're going for. Kirti, what were you thinking?
Yes, Mandy brought up a really good point. I had a different problem. My problem was I wasn't very sure of if I would be able to do contours because I've never done them before.
Oh, what were you doing instead?
So I focused on contours only. That was my problem with this. And now when I see this, and the other problem for me is when don't get me wrong, I love gesture drawing, except when the page gets too messy, that starts to bother me. It bothers me like, oh my God. So I start erasing, then it gets messier. So that's what happened with all of my drawings. And I realized that this time because the gesturing was, I kept that to a minimum because I was worried about how I was going to contour.
Yeah. And you didn't want it to mess it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I mean, there are some things that we haven't talked about yet, but like realistically, when you start a drawing that's going to be a long drawing and you want to finish it with a higher level of detail, you would probably, you'd be working on different paper. The good paper will be easier to wipe away, and your homework this week will be on good paper. So you'll be doing a lot of gesture drawing that you're able to wipe away what you don't want when the time comes. The other thing is people are always upset about loading up their paper with charcoal. And if you can look forward even further in the semester, your whole drawing is going to be covered in charcoal. You're going to be doing value on all of the objects, and there's going to be very, very little of the paper that stays white. So you might draw something and then have to wipe it out, and then you've got this big gray, like, blobby ghost, and everyone's so upset about that. And I tell them, look, everything in that part of the page is at least that dark. You have to have the paper that dark anyway, and it's going to get even darker still. And the other thing, Kirti, is that the Vine charcoal feels very powerful when it's the only tool on the page. But when you go on top of Vine charcoal with Conte crayon or compressed charcoal or the precision of a Wolf's Carbon pencil, your drawing, your Vine charcoal disappears. It just is not that important anymore. These other tools build on top of it. So right now it feels like we're like drawing with a black permanent Sharpie marker, but that's not actually what it is. It's just doesn't have anything overpowering it yet.
Right.
Yeah. So those are some things, but yeah, the contour is something we're trying not to depend on right now. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That's good to know about the charcoal too, because I'm struggling even just drawing with the charcoal. It's like I just want my pencil. It's so more precise, and I can control it better, and I don't feel like I'm controlling this. But that's good to know that it's going to get better.
Yeah, exactly. And I always struggle with how much do I need to I don't know what parts of this, I can guess what parts of this are frustrating for you, but right, I mean, there's better tools. I'm not trying to ask you to use Vine charcoal to make precision lines and do precise drawing. And if you're trying to do that, you're probably pretty frustrated. And, you know, when I tell you, and I'm not saying you, I'm saying you all, when I tell you guys, you know, oh, you've got this big, heavy, ugly outline around your piece, and you're probably sitting there going, I know it's ugly. I hate it too. And I'm sitting there going, why would you do that with a thick piece of Vine charcoal? Why wouldn't you use a pencil for that? You know, and the point is, we're not there. That's not the job we're trying to accomplish right now. So we don't need the pencil yet. There's a tool for that, and I'm not against it, you know, and you can get a pretty high degree of realism working in the way that I'm trying to communicate to you. And I don't want to just say trust me, but I do want to say that this is leading to something that can become quite precise and quite detailed. And I don't know if you guys can remember Jeff Geib, the guy I was showing you in one of those early, where he had the high contrast in those wings and like the bag wrapped in you know, fabric and twine. And I mean, those were, I think, satisfactory in terms of the level of detail that he was getting. And that can be accomplished the way we are building up drawings right now. Some bigger objects, but the same perceptual grid is being built up in these images as well. And just one final example of sort of what we're, you know, the end result of, I think the image on the left really shows things sort of coming into focus. And this actually, what it says down here below these images is they say that these drawings took 2 to 3 hours to do. They're extended gesture drawings is what they're calling them. They work for approximately 2 to 3 hours each. At the time, the students had not yet learned about linear perspective. You guys have learned about it a little bit. They didn't learn about it at all, but they were able to still resolve complex spatial relationships. And I would say they were still able to make the top of that box lay down in space convincingly and not make all these boxes look really wacky. By relying on intuitive gesture. When I say intuitive, like, you know how I've been telling you guys, step back, let's look at this, let's look and make a decision about it, let's look at what's not quite right. So by relying on intuitive gesture, an intensive use of the Mondrian tool, and a generous application of the grid of Mondrian lines, which is that perceptual grid, that's horizontal and vertical alignment, he just calls it something else. Those things are enough to actually, even if you don't understand perspective, if you use those tools right, they're enough to have you get this right. Now, I'm going to point it out, you know, in critiques and different things when things aren't right. Sounds like my daughter just fell and hurt herself, if you can hear screaming in the background. But those things are things that, with the knowledge of linear perspective, should make you even better at. So as we layer in this information and these tools, you will get better at doing this. And then this final image, Kirti, go ahead. And by the way, I can't see anybody raising their hands except Kirti was the last person to talk, so her picture is still up. But go ahead, Kirti.
Hold on. So these are made with pencil, right?
No, this is charcoal.
Still charcoal. Okay.
Charcoal. Yeah, these are charcoal. Now, I don't know how big the drawings are. I don't know if they used a Wolf's Carbon pencil or if they used Conte crayon or if they used Vine charcoal. But I still think that we're at the point where we could use Vine charcoal. But to your point, I did actually say to the last class that when we get about halfway through these drawings, you may find that you want to switch materials. You may find that this Vine charcoal is now, the line is actually too thick for the level of precision that you're prepared to give to this drawing. And when you start having that problem, when you start saying like, but my line is this thick, but I actually need to define where in that line it goes, if you've gotten that precise, it may be time for you to switch to another material.
Okay.
Yeah. So the this is usually the handout that I give, and I actually have it not just in the PowerPoint, but I have it in the module for vertical and horizontal alignment under content, just called handout. And what you can see is that when they teach this, they use either a pencil or a ruler. The ruler blocks out everything 2 inches to the left of the edge that you're looking at. And the pencil is clunky and it's also short. So that's why I really like those skewers that I sent you guys. I could have easily just said, hey, use your pencil, but I bought these skewers and had them sent to each of you because I really think that tool is so much better for reaching the whole way across the image. So I like how skinny it is. I like this example of how you can see so much history to the drawing. That's not ugly. I don't think that's ugly. I think that's a nice, what I like about drawing, I've said to you guys before, is I like seeing the development of the way the person thinks. Um, if you want it to be polished and finished and hide everything, you will, when you add value. But I think seeing some of the history of the drawing is beautiful. And let's just all agree that when value gets added, even if it's not for a couple of weeks, you can hide all your little lines and mistakes if you don't like those. But in the meantime, can we just try to enjoy them? Can you try to like those lines? Because there really is something to that that's very beautiful. And then on the bottom down here, this is sort of what I would like to see in your head. I would like you to be looking and imagining all of these vertical and horizontal relationships. And I don't think it would hurt for you to read some of these little blurbs as you're over the course of the week and as you're working over the weekend. I think these will be good ways to look back at and remember and maybe hear it in a different way what I've been trying to show to you. So that's the end of the PowerPoint. Last class, I did do a demonstration that was brief. I did a horizontal line, then a vertical line, then another horizontal line, and then at 2 lines, they said we want to see more. At 3 lines, they said, okay, we're good, we can go. Would you guys also like me to do that, or would you rather start drawing, or do you know what you're doing? Hands up if you just little demo.
Can you show us, please?
Little demo.
A
Okay.
little demo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while I'm setting up, if there's anything you want to do to set up that's convenient for you, it takes me like 2 or 3 minutes to pull this up. So if there's anything you can do during that time, that's fine, and I'll just kind of call you back before I start drawing.
Okay.
Okay, I'm having a little trouble, so give me another minute.
Should we be setting up our second device right now, or?
All right, guys, I'm going to be ready to start in just a few seconds. So make your way to where you can see my screen once I turn it on. There's that, there's that. I hope you guys think this is worth it. We lose a few minutes, but I think it's it's the best example situation I can give you. Okay. All right, so currently the only person I can see is Haley. So if you have any questions, you need to raise your hand and give me that question. Don't raise your hand, I mean, you need to not raise your hand and just shout out that question and comment and whatever you need to say. Okay, so as you start working, you need your Vine charcoal. I'm going to start on a drawing I already did so that you guys don't have to see me do all that kind of basic gesture stuff, even though you're going to need to spend a little bit of time doing that today. So we're going to start with either a vertical or a horizontal relationship, make some comparisons, and then from horizontal, we'll go to vertical and then back to horizontal and kind of alternate. So one just, I guess maybe quick relationship I could check is if I do a horizontal line across the top of this bowl, this white bowl, and I'll look at some of the intersections I encounter with that. So this is currently the top of my bowl. When you do this, I guess something that's sort of unspoken is that you're sort of assuming that this is correct, right? You're kind of assuming the top of the bowl is in the right place and that everything else might not be. So if you have a shape that you're less confident about, like you know, hey, I've been struggling with this thing the whole time, but this other thing, I know this is where I want it to be, go with the thing, go with the spot that you're more confident and sure of. So I've got a pretty thick line going here at this point, but what I'm trying to do is just draw that, part of that perceptual grid, that reference point that I need to be working all along. So as I line up my horizontal mark and then my skewer, and then I also have the horizontal line drawn, what I can see is that I should be running into the front corner of this box, which I have not yet drawn, and that I get a little bit of an ellipse here. Do you see how I just, not ellipse, a little bit of a triangle. Do you see how I kind of rolled my Vine charcoal so I started to get this more precise line rather than the sort of thick fuzzy line? If you need to be more precise, that's one way to do it if you've got more definite information you want to include. So I was looking at kind of that triangular shape that I should be getting. But I feel like the top of the bowl is pretty much where this box intersects with it. So I don't think I'm going to see any kind of space to the left of this that's showing the box or that's showing any kind of a triangle. As I continue across, what's the next intersection that I hit? Moving to the left of the bowl. I intersect with the left-hand side of the box. And you guys are welcome to kind of shout out what you're seeing. But when I do make that intersection, I look at my drawing and I don't ever run into that side of the box. It's too high. It's higher than perhaps it ought to be, unless maybe the bowl was what needed to move up. So as I keep going across, I get to where I think that the back edge of the boxes that I've indicated, but that tells me I need to move that box down at least enough to intersect with that line. I know this looks kind of crooked, guys, but it's not. I think it's just my angle, the angle of my camera. So please understand that is a perfectly vertical line. Maybe that's why my skewer looked so crooked in that PowerPoint picture too. So that's, believe it or not, that's a vertical mark. And so I don't know where I need to intersect with the bowl down here. That's not really my problem right now. But I do want to make enough of a gestural mark to at least indicate how much of the box I see below that line. Do you see that? Do you see how I see a little bit of the box? So I want to indicate, right here, this distance that I'm seeing by at least, making this kind of a mark. And maybe just gesturally, I want to suggest a little more than that. Because I might not be able to make sense out of this drawing later. If all it is little tick marks this big, I may lose track of what all those marks mean. So I'm going to make enough marks, not that I'm overdrawing or I'm drawing things that aren't my problem right now or my business right now, but I'm going to make enough information there that I can make sense out of what I did after I've been, moving all around the page. Because what you don't want to do, like I would say one of the worst things you could do is sort of stay still and focus on one area. And then as I keep going, I'm intersecting with the purple drapery. And I would ask you to take note of what angle you intersect that purple drapery at. Do you see that angle that I'm hitting it? It's hard to judge this distance, and like you can kind of do it by feel. And I would say I feel that this is probably a little bit short, that it probably comes out a little further. But I do want to just at least record the angle of that drapery as I run into it. And, maybe I want to draw it a little bit more, but maybe not. So I could have, when I got this information, also tried to now change the lid and try to do all these other changes based on that information. But one little bit of information should not cause me to drop everything I'm doing and redraw entire objects. So again, I can gesturally say, hey, this might need to lay down a little bit more than I had it, but I'm not going to, go down a rabbit hole right now of every angle that needs to change. So I just did minimal corrections. Now I'm going back the other way. So heading back to the right, I'm going to look again at what I would call sort of the negative space. What's the shape of this purple drapery as I approach the next object I'm going to intersect with? So do you see how I'm laying this on top of the white bowl? I'm running into the handle of that lantern, and then very shortly after the glass. But I've also got this sliver of purple happening down there that I just don't want to totally overlook. So, noticing sort of what that shape is, and then also noticing what the angle of that handle, little white wire handle is, right where my skewer intersects with it. So I'll make note of what that angle is, something like this. I'm doing my best to just judge these distances, but I don't know. This might belong here. This might belong here. This one tool is not going to tell us everything. It's also relying on your ability to have already done a decent gesture drawing. But you'll find, maybe you put this here and then you do a vertical line up and then you make your way over and then you come back down and you go, oh, this actually needed to line up with that. So you'll be bringing this into focus slowly. In any case, let's keep going across. Keep going across to the right. I'm going well above those swirly curlicue things that are happening kind of down there. So I might indicate just to say I know a little more about this thing. I do intersect with that piece of drapery, that bit of drapery that's, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but the corner of this box, the corner of this raised area that the pot is sitting on, can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's higher, right? Like for my drawing, it lines up perfectly with it, but it ought not to. It ought to be up here, a little higher.
Mm-hmm.
The odds are that I'm that good that this was probably right, but actually, whatever issues are here, it's possible I'm doing this from a slightly different angle than what I had before, that my camera's moved and different things. But it's good. It's good to have things to correct. It's good for looking and trying to make sense out of whatever the new arrangement is. You might do this to yourself just by standing somewhere and then standing a foot to the left by accident. You could change all the angles in your drawing. So you want to get very aware of exactly what that angle was that you had to your piece. So as I'm moving across, I'm seeing that needing to be raised up. Then at some point, I'm running into this other wire piece, actually kind of right below, right just past this corner is where that piece of wire comes down. I didn't mark the other one when I hit it. I marked these little curlicues, but I didn't actually mark that wire. Do you guys see that I intersected with? So making a mark for that. Continuing further, I'm going to hit kind of the last point on this glass that is straight. Right as the skewer intersects with it is where it starts to curve and become that circle. So that might be something that's helpful for me to record on that side too, although I was more focused on the handle when I was over there. So that's kind of the last moment before it straightens out. That's helpful to know. I keep going. I'm going now. This is where it's nice to have that really long skewer. And I'm going to just miss that black box. Oh no, whoa, hold on. I'm going to just graze the top of that white box. So I don't even have the white box drawn in. Maybe that went off my page. But right now it has me intersecting with the black box. That's definitely not right. That has to happen up here somewhere. I don't have time to figure it out right now. But I do recall that I raised this up by at least this much. So maybe at the very least I could raise, some of this up. Again, I'm not using slow, precise lines because I have an agreement with myself over many years that if I'm really sure of something, I'm going to use precise lines. But if I want to make something, I want to make note of something, but I want to remember to come back to it later, if I make it shaky and tentative, I'm going to look at that and I'm going to say, whoa, she wasn't sure when she did that. She needs to, make some changes to that. So this is my code with myself that something's going on here, Not quite sure I want to deal with it right now, but something's happening. And then down here, however distant, I think it's probably pretty far out here. This box is going to go off the page, and it's going to, oh, oops, it's not the corner, the front corner, it's the very top corner. So that it may not even land on the page. See all three of those unconfident lines? That tells me I don't know where that thing is, but there's something over there. You better look into that later. But it's almost off the page. I don't really have time for that. So now I've finished one horizontal line. Now I need to turn and go vertically. And I would advise that you pick one of the intersections already on your drawing, one of the points, that you can find again, and you use that as your next point to check against. So I think one that maybe would be worth looking at, and look, this isn't a hard and fast rule. If there's no good points, find something that you want to do. But just looking up and down, there's a lot of stuff going on right here that I think will be good. Another point that I'd like to see is maybe like over here, the edge of this bowl, although that's not one of the marks I already dealt with. I'd like to hit somewhere in here very soon. So let's go with this. Let's go with the spot where that line joined up with the handle of this lantern, and sort of where there's a little kind of highlight that I can see. So not the most memorable point, but something for me to kind of return to. So I'm holding this up as a vertical line. I'm starting off of this point right here, which is pretty much a black mess at this point, but I'm going to look down from there and up from there. There's already kind of a mark drawn. And I'm just going to take note of the things that ought to be happening along the way. So going down, what I see is sort of a sliver of my lantern, just the slightest bit of, I don't know, I think it's straight, but I just feel like I see glass on the other side, so I'm going to draw it. The bowl obviously is back there, but it's kind of obscured and distorted. I do see a little bit of the metal of the base. Like in here, I see a little bit of the inside, and I see the base all kind of coming out and around down here. I don't know where this goes, guys. I didn't check this against the bottom of the bowl. I didn't measure it. I'm just continuing with my intuitive gesture and with my knowledge of looking, my best perceptual skills. And yeah, I'm bowing this out to the right a little bit because that's what I see happening. So I'm adding on there. I'm going to take another look at it and say, did I add on enough? Yeah, I suggested it. I did the best I could. And here's the best you can do. And I do this kind of naturally without thinking about it. But see the angle right where I intersected? The angle of that ellipse and the angle of that ellipse. If you don't do anything else, try to pay attention to those. Look at what the angle is in that one single moment where the ellipse passes over my my vertical line. Do you see it right there? It's like this. That might not seem like a big deal to you, but if you make it like this, or you make it like this, it's going to throw off your whole ellipse. This is a guide for how you're going to draw the whole rest of this ellipse. Going up from that point, look at the negative space. Look at that purple. Now look at the right side of my skewer. I'm lining up the right side with it. So look at the right side of my skewer. Look at the shape of purple that's left over, as I travel up to that brown bowl, because that's the same shape. Look at that tiny little sliver I've got. I should be seeing something big enough and curved enough that I can actually fit that wire, that white thickness of wire inside of, and then still have another sliver of purple off to the side of it. So just that is sort of forcing me to reshape that glass bulb. Do you guys see that? Would you say that's an equilateral triangle? That's a little longer. It's a right triangle. Feels like more like a right triangle, even though I know there's a little bit of a curve to this dish. Now what I'd like to do is just kind of check the angle from the corner of this box where it intersects to the corner up here, just to give me a little bit of an idea of how high, like did I need to raise this? Sorry, it's shaking a little bit. You know, do I need to raise this up at all? So you can, you know, you can make some of those checks, but that's sort of what I'm getting. Again, I don't want everything to be my problem right now. I just want to kind of do this area. So I'm going to keep going up. The next thing I intersect with, you know, I intersect with that bowl. That was part of my triangle, or the brown pot, I mean. Then I run into the lid, and I can take note of what the angle is of the lid as I intersect with it. I really don't know where that is going to go at this point, but I do know it's kind of above this thing. And then higher still, I run into just the inside of this, or I'm sorry, just the outside of this knob, you know, so that the knob is happening fully inside of that edge. But I don't know where it goes. I don't know if it needs to move up or down. Yeah, there's some space in there. So there's my lid. Okay. So then next I would pick a point on the on this object, and really a point that I'm not very sure of is probably also a really important point, which is where is that lid going to go? I would either pick that point, or and maybe I would want to like gesture a little bit more before I do, or I would pick a point down here like where the bowl is, so I can get some information about this stuff, or maybe where the this is so low. There's not going to be a whole lot, but I could probably get some information about this white box, and definitely, you know, moving across the other way, where do I intersect with this pear? I can already tell, you know, the pear, just based on that, the pear probably goes up a fair amount up here, and the spacing probably moves that way. So let's do this. Let's do this one, and then I'll plan to end my demo after that. So looking at that point, and I'm just gonna, as I line up my vertical one last time, I'm really picking a point that's to the left of all these highlights. I don't know how well you can see it, but there's kind of like a big light and then a big dark, and sort of right where those meet. So like right here. So I'm gonna line up I don't love that point. I don't really like that. It's too precise of a thing to be checking with something that's not that precise. It's very hard to find again. So maybe what I'll do is instead I'll choose a point like based off of that a little bit, like where the lid is joining to the brown pot. I'm making it a little darker just so I have that really clear point I can return to again and again. So looking at that point, I'm going to draw a horizontal line to the left and to the right, and I'm going to back up and double check that that line is actually straight. And believe it or not, it is straight. That's just the camera telling you it's not. So looking to the left of this mark, I'm going to include the stuff I see in the background as well. So I'm noticing as I move across, I see the white frame, and I'm going to make note of where that seems to intersect. It seems to actually intersect with the handle down here. So maybe I'll make a little couple of marks to suggest the handle. Then there's another sort of, I guess that's a frame behind it. That stays fully below this line, so maybe I don't even want to make note of it. Next I see this, it's actually the top of a table that's disassembled, so I'm seeing the vertical lines of this table as I move across the page. Now jumping over, I see the apple, and what part of the apple am I intersecting with? I'm kind of just below that highlight on the apple. So this apple isn't necessarily conflicting with that, but it's also not really developed enough to make any clear determinations about, you know, where I recorded information if I were to come back to it later. So this is a reason for me to add detail to the apple. Do you see how this is a reason to do it versus just doing it when I'm drawing it? So this is the first time I really felt like I needed to define that object more to show where it intersects with this line. So that tells you a little more, doesn't it? Now you're not confusing this line, or what does that mean? So look for reasons that you actually need to draw something, not just drawing it because you're there and you don't know what else to do. And then finally, you're going to land on this angle of the cardboard. And I'm finding that the cardboard appears to be almost the width of an apple away from the apple. So that's where you see me sort of making this go further over, and also trying to record the angle of the cardboard as I do that. Okay, and then going to the right, I'm moving across the crock pot thing. I'm getting obviously to the other side, which is where, you know, the lid, it's symmetrical, so that's where I'm going to wind up. Now I do have, you know, a loose gesture of this top of the lantern to sort of just suggest where I might need to be ending that, or where the size of that pot might be. I also have some marks, like if I were to follow this line up, this white line, that's the piece of metal, and curve in, and then I went straight up from that, that's almost where my pot starts. So I can sort of imagine, even though I didn't finish that, kind of imagine that rhythm to the image, that movement to the image will also give me a little bit of information about relationships of objects. Then I'm immediately, they're touching each other. I'm encountering this open door. So I'll give some dimension to that, give it a little bit of width. As I continue, I see stuff so dark in the background that I can't figure out really how to draw it until I get to the next door. And I'm just doing my best right now to make judgments based off of maybe this width, how wide that should be. You know, they look kind of similar, so about that wide. Then I hit the other width of the door, and I'm continuing. I'm going to hold up that line again because it's easy to forget where that line goes. And then I'm running right into that little hump of the apple, right where not apple, the pear. I forget all my words when I'm drawing. I think it's like another part of your brain taking over. Right where the pane of that glass happens is right where the apple comes in. Oh, see, pear. Stop. Yeah, so that tells me I got to resketch that pear just a little bit. Okay. Do you have any comments or questions or thoughts about how I'm doing that, or anything you'd like me to show additionally? Don't raise your hand because I can't see you. So what are you thinking?
I have a question.
Go ahead. Selena? Is that
yeah.
Selena? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we're just supposed to do a general drawing of our still life and then incorporate the horizontal and vertical lines, and then like redraw it, fill it in where it needs to fit, right?
Right. So you're starting with a gesture. I took a shortcut today and used a gesture I had done for a previous class. Mm-hmm. When you're doing the gesture, and I write about this in the homework, but maybe I haven't talked about it enough, particularly today. But when you're doing the gesture, I think of the gesture as two stages, and that might not come as a surprise, especially when we think about the PowerPoint we just looked at where they called it an extended gesture. So I think of you doing the early gesture, the initial gesture, as being those placeholders, you know, as being things that aren't really things yet. They're just blobs that are this big or that big, or, you know, in front of this or behind that or above that or below that. And then staying pretty non-committal. And then I see you backing up and looking at your camera feed and talking with me objectively about what doesn't look right. Like when I don't use any tools, I don't use any horizontal or vertical alignment, what can I just see? How can my eyes get better? Because ultimately the goal, and I'll tell you, I have not achieved it yet. The goal is that you don't need any of these tools, that you can just look and match what you see because you're doing so much of it in your head. So the first exercise of every day is just seeing what can your head do without any of these tools. So we're going to do as much of the gesture as we can just with nothing, just trusting our eyes. And when there's nothing, when you can't do any better and you've run out of things to change and improve, that's when, and maybe that's 10 minutes for some people, maybe that's 30 minutes for some people. When you hit that point, that's when we're going to start using the vertical and horizontal lines to make, further commitments. And I'll probably look at some of your drawings and say, oh, you're ready for horizontal and vertical lines, not because you have everything in the right place, but because you already started outlining stuff and I think you skipped a step. So, maybe your gesture will just be developed enough that I think you're ready and I want you to get to try it out. But it also might be that it's like, hey, if you're already drawing the lid, the cap on the top of that bottle, you definitely need to rewind and go back to just those verticals and horizontals. Is that further clarifying your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure. What else? All right, I think you guys are ready to draw. I can't believe it's been an hour. So go ahead but we had a really good conversation. So go ahead, start drawing, shoot me over an email with your exact point of view, standing at exactly the spot that you're standing at. And I'm just going to try to work through everybody. But I do want you to know that we're going to pick up with these drawings again next class. So we're going to work on them today, but we're going to continue with them on Thursday.
So Casey, is it okay? Is it okay to use the same still life
Sure.
that I used before? It's okay, right?
Yeah, I mean, I might ask you at some point to change. In fact, in your homework, I'm going to insist that everybody includes a background, and I can't remember if you have one or not. But yeah, no, whatever you've got right now, I would not be arranging a new still life. I would use whatever you have sitting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right. So go ahead and start drawing, guys. As soon as you're ready, start doing those gesture drawings. And then we'll move into the horizontals and the verticals.
So send you the picture of our still life now and then start drawing?
Yeah, or if you want to just start drawing and then shoot me a picture later, I don't really care. I just can't give you feedback till I get the picture. So you can either go ahead and put it in my inbox now and then start drawing so you don't have to worry about it or move your camera, or you could do it later. I'm going to step away for 1 minute and then I'll be back. All right, I'm back, guys. So let me know if you have any questions. And I can already tell you we're out of time in terms of me looking at the homework today. I actually did look at your homeworks pretty extensively today before class started, and I had a really nice setup to go over them with you. Not a problem. We'll discuss it on Thursday because we're not going to have a big introduction. Like I said, we're just going to pick up with this drawing and keep going. And you know you're getting tired of me talking, so this will be good.
Am I visible now?
Yep, I can see you.
I actually have a question.
Go ahead.
Quick.
What's your question? Oh, I can't hear you. Yep, I lost you, Christian. So if you can hear me, just when you get back, I'll be interested to know what your question is.
My internet cut out.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
On mine, my external camera isn't working right now. I gotta figure out what's wrong with it. So I gotta show you. On mine, I have this glass that's laying on its side. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. What about
I'm
it?
trying to figure out how I draw that because it did not turn out well. Oh, you can't even see that, but I can.
I can just barely see it. But is it something you submitted for homework? Your internet cut out again.
How to draw it on something. Yeah. My thing has to be in my basement, so I can't. So sometimes it cuts out.
That's okay. All right. So you cut out a lot. But what I am thinking I'm getting from what you're saying is you weren't sure how to draw the wine glass.
That's on its side.
Because it's turned on its side.
Mm-hmm.
And that has a little bit to do with perspective. Like imagine if that wine glass was in a box, right? Like wrapped in a cardboard box.
Mm-hmm.
The angle, like, and you're drawing it in 1-point perspective or 2-point perspective where it's going back in space. The angles and the box, like, can you imagine if you had sliced that box at different points and the types of ellipses that would be there at any given point? Some would be bigger at the bigger part of the glass, some would be smaller where the stem is, but they're foreshortened and they're stacking on each other. It's just like if you see my fingers like this, but then you see my fingers like this. How do you draw that?
Probably draw 3 circles with an ellipse on the end.
Yeah, they're getting stacked on. So you're getting this information presented to you a way that you're not as familiar with seeing. Today, what I think will be interesting for you with drawing that, I think you should keep it on its side. And do you remember how I read that excerpt from the PowerPoint where they said even without an understanding of perspective, the students were able to figure this out just by using the grid?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be tricky, but I think just by using horizontal and vertical lines, you can actually get that to be accurate.
What I've been doing is, like, when I look at it, when I was drawing like a coffee mug, I realized that the start of the thing lined up with horizon line, so I started that. So I used that.
All those kind of things are going to be good for you to know and to be aware of.
God, this is...
You know, Mandy, I think I might have accidentally deleted that that day, and I'm not sure how. But anyway, if you can remind me what you needed from it, or you know what I could do? It's not the same, but I'll connect the class, because I do the same thing in both classes, the AM and PM class. So assuming that I've got the class, the AM class.
Sorry, I crashed again.
Oh, okay. That's okay, Christian. I was just telling Mandy something. Assuming that I have the AM class, I could at least give you that. What were you looking?
I think it was like the last half hour or so
Okay.
that I lost my hit
Oh.
power lines and I had no power.
So you saw all of the introduction. You just didn't get to see the feedback when drawing.
Yeah.
That might not be the end of the world. That's not nearly as bad as me imagining you not seeing any of it.
All of it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought I didn't miss a whole lot just by what you posted regarding the homework and how the next class started. I thought, well, I didn't miss anything.
Okay, so for you, there were not big knowledge gaps. Like you weren't looking going, whoa, what happened between then and then?
No,
okay, then there might not be an issue. I do have August 27th for the other class. I'm just taking a look to make sure it wasn't your class I accidentally uploaded to the wrong group. No, that's definitely my morning group. So if you'd like, I could download it and re-upload it to our class if you think it would be helpful.
For myself, I'm good. I don't know if anybody else missed class.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, then anybody listening, if you are in need of the August 27th class, I'll just have to give you the AM classes recording. I don't know how that got messed up, but it did. So just let me know individually if you are finding that you need that. Okay, so I'm looking at people's drawings, and like Sergio, I see you drawing one single object, so that concerns me. You've got all kinds of detail on one object, but you don't have any of the other objects on your paper yet. So remember, we're not drawing objects right now. We're just doing placeholders for many objects. And this part of the drawing, this early part, isn't even really about the objects. It's about finding a place for the objects on the page. So maybe you just need an oval, or maybe you need a line to show kind of the height and width for that form. Nate, for whatever reason, your camera is horizontal or vertical. I don't know how to, it's like wrong. Yeah, do you have your screen locked? Because I'd like to see the horizontal.
Yeah, I have no idea why it keeps
doing that. Okay, well, if you can't do anything else, just keep it turned like this, because I just couldn't see mine. That happens just if the screen locks, or sometimes it'll reset, but I know some people's have been getting stuck like that. Okay, Alexis, you're filling the page nicely. I don't quite know what you're drawing yet, but it looks like you're developing that. I hope at this point in the drawing, Alexis, you're backing up. So you're getting away from it, like physically backing up and taking some time to just look at your still life, stand where you can see your still life and your drawing, and just make some comparisons. Do the best you can do to just make those comparisons. Kirti and Haley, your angles of your camera aren't terrible, but they're far enough away that I really can't see your drawing. If you don't want to spend extra time now trying to fix that's okay. But if you can get any closer to your head, if the camera can be about 1 or 2 feet away from the drawing so that it's filling the whole page, the paper's filling the whole page, and if it can be aimed down a little more for both of you, aim down so I get a more square view. Yeah, the closer you can get to something like that, the easier it'll be for me to give you feedback when the time comes. If that's impossible for you to set up, you can always send me a picture for the moment. So, it can always be something you deal with later if you can't deal with it now. Nate, that's so crazy. It turned sideways again. If you can't get it to stop doing that, that's okay. When we talk about it, I'll just get you to send me a picture. It's turning back on its own, I guess.
Is that any better?
Haley, yeah, it's better. If you can angle it down a tiny bit more, that'd be great. But what you've got is it's still pretty far away. Like I'm still having trouble seeing what's on your paper, but it's definitely an improvement. It's like half as good as I'd like it to be, but it's a definitely all in the right direction. And then angle it down. Can you do that?
I can try. Right now it's hooked up.
Okay. I heard you and you cut out. But if you can't do it, that's okay. It might be something that you're able to fix more next time.
Casey, what about mine? This is Kirti.
Kirti, it's better, but the more behind the drawing, the closer to your head it can get, the better.
Okay.
Okay, because your head, you're still like a foot or two to the left of it, aren't you?
A foot maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So the closer, yeah, that's great. That's a lot better.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Good. All right, Selena, make sure you're not overcommitting to objects. Make sure you're looking for groups or clusters of objects and looking at the shape they make with each other. I don't want you to get so specific that you don't want to undo it or move it if something's wrong. Okay, Nate, your picture's better now. So, back up each time you make a change with your gesture, back up from it and make some decisions at a distance, and then when you walk up and you draw, make that one change and then back up again. And this is going to sound the opposite of what a drawing teacher would tell you, but the less drawing you do, the better you are going to be at this. If you sit here and your arm is moving from now till 7:45, your arm's going to be tired, but you won't have been looking. You'll have been exercising some upper arm muscles and you'll have put something on the paper, but mostly you're burning calories. And if you would back up and you only made one mark every 30 seconds or every minute, they'd probably be a lot more intelligent marks. So this is all a discipline thing. If you can get the discipline to force yourself to really stand, you know how I say like, okay, where are you standing? If that spot is actually 3 feet away from your drawing pad, you're probably better off. It means you're doing more looking than you are drawing, and you will make a better drawing every time that way. Whoa, okay, Kirti, now it got really high. And that's okay. I'm looking way down at it now. And yeah. Is it just still, that's perfect for me.
Okay.
That's perfect. Okay. But now can you get in front of your paper or am I in the way?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. Okay, Aaliyah, I see you adding in your forms. I can't see your whole paper, like the space above the top of the bottles, but you're still responsible for it, so what's happening in your arrangement? And do you have your paper horizontal or vertical?
It's horizontal.
Oh, it's horizontal. Okay. So then there's empty space to the left and right, correct?
Yeah.
So in a perfect world, you'd be dealing with the whole page and not cropping so much out. You know what I mean? You're doing the whole page, the whole picture. So like when you take a photo with your phone, even if you don't like what's on the left and right, it still makes it into the picture. So if you didn't like what was happening out there, you'd have to zoom in more, right?
Yeah.
But you can't change the proportions of the photograph. Technically you can, but so think about that. Think about what you're stuck with at this scale. What has to be included to the left and right of that.
Okay.
Okay. Guys, I will start calling on you to give you feedback, but I haven't yet. If you're ready for feedback, you need to let me know.
All right, I think I'm ready. It's Calvin.
Calvin, any way we can get closer to that picture?
Yeah, definitely. Hold
Okay.
on. Oh, I'm coming.
Okay, and
I
in the meantime,
emailed you a picture of my still life.
okay, I'll go ahead and work on, while you're working on that, I'll work on pulling up that picture. And okay. Calvin. All right, Calvin, that is a good view. So, oh, but I'm not sharing my picture with you. Okay, give me one more second. Okay, can you see that, Calvin?
Yeah, I can see it.
Is it too small or is it okay?
No, I can see it.
Okay. So you're looking down like that? Is that correct?
Yeah, that is from my eye level. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, did I just lose the picture? Did you just lose picture? Darn.
A little bit.
I'll try this one more time and then maybe I have to do it differently. Sorry to keep you waiting here. Okay. All right, that was pretty painful. Sorry about that. Just making sure you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so the drawing looks pretty good. We're looking at the gesture pre-horizontal and vertical alignment. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay, So I think some of the things that you can look for, like as you're backing up, the things I'd like you to see are that this, at least from here, the head or handle of the violin travels off of the box. So do you think that means the box needs to be a little shorter, or that the handle of the violin needs to be drawn a little different?
I think the box needs to be shorter. I think I foreshortened the box incorrectly.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it also, the answer is probably both. So as you draw
Mhm.
the box, you'll probably be shortening it. You know, just when I look at these proportions, it feels a lot longer, right? Then it
Mhm.
feels less square than what you see on your paper. Also, though, as you draw the handle of this um, violin, I'm going to zoom in really big for a second. Um, what I see is like the profile of it. I see you, oh my, I see you laying it down like you're looking at it from the side. But what you've
Mhm.
actually got is this thing that you're looking at an angle. So first, if you want to think about it this way, it's kind of a like a box, like a cylinder. Do you see that cylinder? You know, if you
Yeah.
had to put it in a box. And then do you see that there's sort of this other, box that it continues to be in?
Yeah. Yeah. That other portion of it.
Right. So that, maybe you don't want to draw all that, which is okay. But I think what you can do is look at some of the places those lines connect, because that will matter. The top of this, if this kept going, it would hit somewhere around here. So those things are going to kind of arc up above it. This is
Mhm.
the bottom of it. So if it was in a box, these lines would be above it, and then this would be down here. So it's kind of that structure. It's like in those videos where I did something in linear perspective, but I always started with a box, even if it was a round thing. It's kind of like what's the geometric shape that it's in. So those are the two. It's changing that proportion a little bit and dealing with that. You did a better job with the box on the right. That looks better. Although you don't yet have this side of it yet.
Mhm.
Do you see that from your point of view?
No, I think that was user error. I think I kind of
Okay,
stood a
that's
little
okay.
bit too far over. Yeah.
That's okay. But that's an easy one to say, oh, well, I just can't see that. So that means I might have it wrong. So I might also have wrong your spacing here, but look at how much space you get between those objects, whether they ought to be
Mhm.
overlapping or not. And your bottle is going off the page, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But as you draw this whole violin, imagine it as just like that cardboard box it's resting on. Imagine if it was in a box, what that box looks like, because that's going to help you a lot with getting this organic round thing to not look really wonky. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I don't have a lot to complain about. I think and these are too short. This is way too short. This distance from here to here.
Yeah.
Yeah, way too short. Compare that to like something like this distance,
Okay.
or this
Yeah.
distance. I don't have a whole lot to complain about. I think don't forget the box cutter. And then
Definitely.
go ahead and just start making. You've got such a good setup, because it's a tricky angle. But when you start doing those verticals and horizontals, this is so great because you have so many things on an angle. It's going to really force you mentally you're going to get this. You're going to struggle, and then you're going to get it. So this is great. This is a really good setup
I
for
love a
this.
challenge. Perfect.
Yeah, that's what I think. It's like a challenge. I think you're going to nail it.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Yep.
Professor Hall, I just sent you an email of my setup. Would you be able to
Yeah.
help me out, please?
Let me pull up. Is this Selena?
Yes.
Okay. I'm having a lot of trouble with my screen broadcasting here. I may have to find another way to do this after you. Okay, and well, Selena, let me find your camera here. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen? Can you see my picture of your still life? Selena?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, that's okay. All right. So, okay. So I'm looking at this. You took the photo. I would say maybe like zoom in a little more when you take the photo, because it's the photo. Really, this is what I need, right? Like this amount of it. Now,
Okay.
I see that you drew the tabletop, but even when I zoom out, I don't see a tabletop. Like, see that rectangle that you have it sitting on?
Yes.
Okay, so I would say actually maybe the window of what you needed to photograph is like outside of what you know what I mean? Like I may need to see the picture of what's below that stuff a little more, because that's kind of what's fitting in your picture frame. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, but let's talk about what's here. So you haven't done any of the verticals and horizontals yet. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just looking at the objects that we can kind of see. And I see that cross, and I see you kind of have it, once you have it drawn kind of drawn head on, but then it looks like you started to turn it a little bit. And I think you're on the right track there, because I think all of these angles, can you see what I'm drawing?
Yeah.
Okay, I think all of these angles are basically parallel to each other. And you see the top of this, which is what's going to tell us that we're looking down on it. So that's the angle that we need to be seeing in the base, in everything. And this is really a box, right? This is the box. Do you see that box?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a bunch of boxes. Looking down from that, you've got the chapstick. I would compare the length of that chapstick to the length of this bottom box that we just drew. Which one do you think is longer?
The chapstick?
The chapstick. Mm-hmm. Then looking over at the this box, that black box, which one do you think is longer there? The chapstick or the box? Like just that distance that I showed you, that distance that I drew those red marks on. They're almost the same,
Yeah.
but that black box is a tiny bit wider.
Okay.
Okay, so that tells me your box, your black box needs to get wider, and it looks small. Like when you just look at the picture, doesn't it look a little bit too tall and skinny? Yeah. So I would get that a little wider. I think over here, when I look at the opening of this bowl, I feel like I'm always telling people, hey, your ellipse is too open. You need to make it more horizontal. I think you're right on. I think this ellipse is really open, and that's what you're showing. I think you could make it a little more symmetrical, but down here, what you need to understand is this ellipse, the ellipse that shows the foot of the of that bowl, that's even more curved. So look for, I mean, it's just hidden down here, but there's quite a curve to that, and there's quite a curve here. So where the bottom of that bowl is flattening out for you, I don't think it should. Do you think that the pill bottle is too wide or too skinny in your drawing?
I think it's a little bit too skinny and tall.
Yep, if anything, it's a little too skinny, so widen it. Maybe it's too tall. It's going to get covered up by the bowl. And I don't think your ellipse is round enough. I think it's closer to being a circle than what you currently have. You know, you have it too foreshortened. Maybe the same thing with this candle, and I think the candle has a lot of ellipses in it, right? Like there's the opening, but there's also where the wax comes to. So I'm kind of tracing that, and that's another ellipse. And then I'm tracing where I can't really describe what it is, but you see it, don't you?
Yeah.
And that ellipse is probably a little more open than I did it as well. And then down here, look at that curve. You know, again, you're looking way down at it. So all of those are just very open because you're looking down so much. Okay, now when you start doing vertical and horizontal alignment, here's where I want you to start. Start with the back corner. I'm going to change colors, and hopefully that makes it easier to see. Start with the back corner of this this box. Do you see that back corner?
Yeah.
And here's a little spoiler alert. When you go straight across horizontally, what's the first thing you're going to hit?
The edge of the candle, the bottom of it.
That little tiny,
one.
Yeah, that little tiny metal votive candle, right? Okay, so as you're gesturing and fixing some of these things, you see how dark of marks you've made and how hard it's going to be to possibly shift some of that stuff. Don't be afraid, and I like what you did already, where it looks a little smudged. Don't be afraid to use your chamois to just kind of smudge that, even if it leaves a big dark cloud there, and just draw right on top of it and shift stuff over as needed.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Thank you.
Yep, for sure.
All right, Casey, this is Kirti. I'm ready for you to critique
Okay,
mine,
Kirti.
please.
Let's see. If I lose my broadcast one more time, I'm going to switch to a different way of doing this, but we'll see how it goes. Okay. Can you see the picture of, oh, it quit again. Darn it. Okay. I'm going to do it a different way. So give me just a second, Kirti, and I'm going to...
Sure. No problem. Yeah. Sure.
Technical difficulties. This will work just as well. I was just hoping I could do it a better way for you, but that's okay. So just opening up my email, opening your picture, Kirti. And let me find you. Okay, I can't find you, Kirti. Oh, there we go. There we go. I couldn't switch pages. Okay, I see one picture. Maybe this. Yeah, I see both your cameras.
Yeah,
I don't see a drawing though.
Oh, hold on. I don't know why my camera keeps switching away, like
to front view.
The selfie. Yeah.
How funny. I wonder why it's doing that.
Because it was on. Okay, hold on. Let me check.
Yeah, I was like, why can't I find her?
See, won't do that. I don't know. Okay.
You think it's there now? As soon as you changed the camera, you disappeared. Like I
Oh,
saw the right picture and then all of a sudden your screen disappeared.
yeah. I wonder why though. It was doing
Well,
this the other
would you like to
day.
just take a picture of your
Yeah,
drawing and
you
send
know
it to
what?
me?
Let me put what I did the last time was I used the original device, and that's
Mm,
what you could see. So,
okay.
let
Well,
me see
that's
if
up
I
to
can
you.
do that.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, sure. I know this is not the best way to do it, but
No, that's okay.
uh, can
Okay.
can you see anything at all?
Yep, I can see it.
Oh,
Can you aim a little down and back up a tiny bit?
yeah, there.
Now, are
That's a
you
little
going to be
better.
able to see me drawing?
Yes, I'm looking at you. Yeah,
Okay,
there.
okay. Okay, so you
I think
started
my
doing
shadow
those.
is on there.
What'd you say?
No, my shadow is
Oh,
on there as
it's
well.
not causing a problem.
Okay, all right.
So you've done one vertical and one horizontal so far. And
Uh-huh.
how is it working?
Um, I'm not um I'm not sure about this part. This one
Mm-hmm.
here,
Mm-hmm.
the one that is like a rectangle. I'm not sure about that.
Because for your vertical line, were you just trying to go through the middle of that red dish? Red.
I'm actually what I did was I have these set up on like steps. So I
Okay.
just used one of the steps as a horizontal line, and then yes, I was trying to see if the red lines up with the rectangle waist on the
Okay.
top.
So like
That's
if
what
the
I was trying to
middle
do.
of the red thing lined up with
Hmm.
the.
Hmm.
Okay.
Just give me 1 second. I don't know what this
That's
is, but
okay. We're all going to be
uh,
pros at this in another couple of
I know.
weeks.
I know. This
But
is
right
much
now it
better. Okay.
hurts.
All right.
Okay. So I think I see what you're doing with the
Mm-hmm.
lines. I think
Mm-hmm.
this line, oh, I shouldn't have switched to blue. Do you see that this line right here? That's what you were trying to draw. This is
Mm-hmm.
very objective, Kirti. This could be
Okay.
here or here.
Mm-hmm.
So you decide where it is. If you're thinking it's here, I
Mm-hmm.
think that makes sense.
Okay.
I think you have it a little too close in your drawing. I think it needs to
Okay.
move to the left a little bit. The
Okay.
mark over here feels fine to me, but just
Mm-hmm.
realize, it's already starting to move in and curve in.
Right.
So
Right.
don't over straighten it either.
Okay.
Um, Allow, if nothing else, allow your line to start to get a little lighter when you get here. Make your
Okay.
mark a little less dark, and that gives you
Mm-hmm.
less commitment in that way.
Okay.
How far do you think this distance is from the bottom of this to the top of this red thing? How do you think
Probably.
yours is too close or too far?
You mean this? You mean the red vase kind of thing? The
Yeah, I mean the
round
space
object?
right here to get from the bottom of the planter
Mm-hmm.
to the top of
I think
the.
it's too tall. Uh, Maybe it's a little too much, too long, too far, rather.
Yeah.
Is that what you think?
Yeah, that's what I think too, because I think that
Mm-hmm.
you could take, for example, you could take the height of this planter
Mm-hmm.
and you could move it. I don't know if this will work or not. Move it down one. And look, you still have to travel even further to get to the
Right.
top of this. So this measurement even moved down one is not enough, and
Okay.
in your
Okay.
drawing, it's not even that
Mm-hmm.
far away.
Okay.
So part of it is, yes, that you need to smush this object. It's probably the
Right.
right width. It's not the right height. But
Mm-hmm.
it might also be that it just has to move. The whole
Mm-hmm.
thing might move down some.
Right. Right.
If anything, do you have this coffee thing?
Yeah, that is short.
Too
The
short.
one I had yes, it's too short. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and the top of it, when I see your horizontal line, it tells me that the top of it passes above a little bit.
Yeah.
But from my view, and you can decide if that's right or not, it's actually all happening below that line.
You're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way for me to not fix, but kind of move this would be to
Yeah.
move this lower and then move this a little bit lower as well, or smoosh it a little more.
Both.
Right?
Yep. And
Okay.
and I
Okay.
think when you move it, don't draw it as nicely as you drew it last time.
Okay.
Don't spend as
Okay, I
much
get it.
time on it. Just make
Just kind of
loose, because you might find that it moves again later.
Okay.
So
Okay,
don't spend so much time on it that you can't make a change quickly later, because it will be hard to move this right now.
Yeah, it is. I know. I know
So
what you're
take your
saying.
chamois and just wipe it off and, sketch it lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And look, go ahead.
No, I was just asking because I end up using like the kneadable eraser. Is that okay?
It's
I kind of end up using this.
I would say don't use it, because the kneaded eraser has it will basically, it's not a good habit. It doesn't really matter if you use it right now, but it will bruise your paper when you get to your good paper. So you don't want to use the eraser. I try not to let people use the eraser at all till the very end of the drawing.
Okay.
Because there's probably still charcoal there anyway, so you probably don't need to erase it.
Right.
So I would say more use the chamois and smudge it and then draw again on top.
Again on top of it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'll do that. Yeah.
And you made the little foot of this object, you made it teensy tiny again. And I think it's a little bigger.
Yes, this can go a little bigger. Yeah.
Okay. And this point, see these angles? That goes below that line.
That line. Okay.
Yep. Right. And this one too. This one too, below it. Okay.
I see that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Could you critique mine?
Yep. Who's talking?
Haley, I sent you an email of it, although since you asked me to move my camera, I am drawing it, I think, at a slightly different angle.
Oh, okay. Okay. But you're still standing in the same place.
Well, my camera's hooked up to a light, like a standing light that you use in a room when you're like doing construction. So right now, the light is standing exactly where I was. So what I do is I stand at the light, look at it, and then go back to drawing.
Okay.
So it's kind of difficult to stand where I have been since that's where the camera is now.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say, and again, you don't have to do this right this second, but don't let the camera stop you from being in the right place. So if I have a better view than you do, then I've stopped you from being able to draw. You know what I mean? Like, I've done that. So if you're losing your spot, the camera has to move over a little bit, because it still won't be accurate, right? It's forcing you to move, so it won't be accurate. So, okay, so I'm going to open up this drawing. Share it. Okay, and you can see it now. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you're doing I see some horizontal lines. Are you doing them all the way across? Like when you do the bottom of this vase, for example, are you going all the way across the orange?
I'm not entirely across the paper, but I'm going from the one item to the other item on the other side of the paper.
Okay. I would keep going and almost go past it. But when I do look at this particular relationship, and you can tell me if this is wrong or not, I think the bottom of the orange, I know there's a leaf in front of it. I think the leaf should be cut in half by this line, and it's not being cut in half. It's going totally above that leaf. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So the leaf would move up, if I imagine the orange, I think the orange is probably touching that line. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can't actually see this. You probably can see the bottom of this sugar creamer thing. I'm guessing it's here, the sugar dish, but
Yeah.
it's way above. You know, it's going to line up
Yeah.
with. Actually, it doesn't look too far off. It looks like it does line up with this over here, the corner of this. I don't know if you've drawn that line yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so another place that you've drawn is here, you know, the top of this glass thing. And you might want to take a look at how that second set of leaves lines up with it. Do you see the second set of leaves and how it sort of,
Mm-hmm.
it's a big set. It's almost as big as the set below it. And the leaf, this left leaf kind of lines up right with that horizontal line. Yep. Now take a look, Haley, at the spacing, and I'm going to draw this with rectangles, but look at the space between these two objects.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the space from here to here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
The thing moved over.
what needs to move over?
The orange, from what I've drawn, it looks like I
So-
have way too much space here and not enough space on the side.
Yeah, so I think the base of the orange thing might change shape a little bit, but I don't think it's actually going to move.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean.
But
now.
I think the top of it is just maybe a little bit, not the orange fruit, the orange glass thing.
Yeah, this.
Yeah. So the angles of the bottom of that, look at this. Look at this angle and this angle. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
But you see how yours on this side is
Yeah.
almost level here? Yeah.
Yeah.
So angle that up more. And then I think this is crooked on yours. I think it's, you know, it's perfectly vertical in the photo, but I think your object is starting to lean. And I think you probably,
Yes,
yeah, and I think you can probably make this, do you think this neck, the skinniest part of this, do you think you have it too skinny or too wide?
I think I have it too skinny right here.
Yeah, so it's going to get a little wider, which is going to help shrink some of these spaces. It's going to get a little straighter, which is going to leave some room between the duck and the orange glass. And then this space, you know, if I draw a vertical line down from the corner, the very corner of this candle holder and all that stuff, look at how I touch the edge of this. I touch the edge of this. I don't touch here. That tells you maybe this gets skinnier right here. And they actually intersect a little to the right of it, which is true in your drawing also. So are those comparisons feeling helpful to you as I'm pointing them out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is going to get a lot taller in your still life. When you draw a line over from the tip of the duck's bill, there's still a lot going on above that.
Yeah.
And draw the whole line. And here's another reason you need to draw the whole line, Haley, all the way across this way too. Because look at the space here. This goes straight down and then it angles down some more. The head of the duck never swoops back up again.
Yeah.
And this is almost a perfectly vertical line right here. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So where you have an angle, you need a straight line.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And the final, here's one I want you to check soon, is check the top of this red mug.
Oh,
So-
yeah, that's why I'm having problems. with
Yeah,
that.
because that's going to line up with the duck's tail.
Mhm.
It's going to line up with part of the orange that's not going to be that significant. But look at where it's going to line up with on this candlestick. Look at the widest part of the
Yeah.
candlestick. Does that happen above that line? Yes. In your
That's what I
drawing,
was-
where does it happen? Below that line.
Below, yeah.
Yeah. So that will tell you some shape change to make. And then over here, you're going to run into that, which I think you probably will run into. And look at the angle right as you leave. Look at that. That's going to really help you with the curve of this shape. Look at the angle you run into in those two places. And look at the shadow. And don't forget to draw this line. Don't forget to draw the back side because that's a built-in vertical and horizontal.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, guys, I managed to go all the way up to the end of class without even knowing it once again. The good news is I'm not doing a long anything next time. We're just going to have time to draw and time to work. We're going to keep going with these same exact drawings. So if you didn't yet, go ahead and take a picture, exactly from your point of view. This is also in case your cat knocks your whole arrangement over, you can put it back in the right place. So save this still life, save the image, the drawing that you're working on, leave it on your still life, leave it on your easel. You can keep working. I'd love if you did not yet get to do a vertical and a horizontal, you should do one of each before class starts next time. Because if you're still working on your intuitive gesture, that's fantastic if that means you've been backing up a lot. It doesn't bother me at all that it took you this whole time to do that. But you need to get to that other step so we can talk next time. So after I log off here, I'm going to make note of sort of who I didn't get to this time and who I did. It wasn't very many people. And then next class, I'll show you a couple little things, but we'll really dive into drawing. Okay, so don't even, if you want to get set up so you're ready to start drawing pretty early in class, the only thing I need to do is go over your homework. So I'll go over your homework with you. Okay? All right, you're good to go. If you have any questions, ask them. I won't sign off right away, but I will talk to you guys on Tuesday.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is your easel supposed to be at an angle?
My easel? My personal?
I mean, just any easel in general.
Do you mean an angle, like, can you see my camera feed right now? Do you mean an angle like where this is leaning back a little bit?
Yeah, where it's leaning back a little bit.
Yeah, but only a little bit. It's not a table. It's not like you want it leaned way back, just a little bit.
Okay, because in the middle of this class, my easel decided that it wanted to stop working and it won't support the weight of the clipboard and the heavy
Is there should be a screw or something on the back side of your easel, and if you want to show me your easel, I might be able to help with it. Okay. But there's something you have to tighten that can come loose, and then it'll fall over.
Oh, okay.
On every easel, it's like that because it leans back and it adjusts, but if you let it get too loose, it'll just fall over. It happens every semester. And we have big, heavy metal easels in our classroom, and it's a really kind of scary thing when they fall over, but it always happens.
Can I just check my photos? I just send the email to you.
Okay, so that's one that we'll look at when class starts next time. I'll start with you, Marihan.
Okay.
I'm going to make note. You can remind me, but I'm going to make note that you're first next time. And I'll just look at your email. I'll use that email.
Yeah, it will be fine if you answer to my email so I can understand if there's something.
Oh, you wrote me a message or did you send me pictures?
No, it's just a photo, like picture.
You sent me photos. Yeah. So but you want me to compare this to your drawing, correct?
Yeah.
So let's do that at the beginning of next class, okay? Whenever you have the video feed of your drawing, I'll be able to look at that and I'll look at this photo and I'll save the photo, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, anybody else have questions?
No, but thank you for the critique.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good night.
guys.
Right.
Professor,
Yes.
so I don't know how my drawing looks. I probably made it too dark.
Okay. Yeah, I saw you filling all that in dark, and I wonder what was the goal when you were doing that?
To delete the background lines.
To hide the background lines? Okay. Well, I don't think
Yeah.
it was necessary to do that. I'm worried that the foreground lines are so dark you can't make changes. Are you worried about that or no?
Should I?
I don't know because I can't tell how, like if you wipe at one of those lines, does it go away or is it so dark that it's stuck?
Oh no, it kind of goes away. Yeah,
Okay, then I think you're fine. I think you're totally fine. So next time, let's take a look at your drawing and your picture. Did you send me a picture yet?
Nah, not really.
Okay, we'll go ahead and maybe when class starts next time, send me a picture of your still life so we can make some comparisons. And did you get to draw some verticals and horizontals to check relationships?
Yeah,
Okay.
I made some lines. Yeah.
But then did you wipe them away?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a mistake. That is bad because then you can't show the proof that you did it. You know what I mean?
Oh
And
no,
you don't.
I kind of still see them in here. So.
Okay, well that's what I would say is important. So if you want to, between this time and next time, take a good photo of your drawing and a good photo of your still life and just send them to my email and you can remind me, oh, just look at the email pictures that I sent you so I have the best possible view that I can talk to you about it with.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Okay.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
You too.
Okay, bye.